Hey friends, welcome back to the Burn Stress Lose Weight podcast. Today I am excited to bring with you a conversation with one of my new friends, Dr. Shivana Naidoo. Shivana and I met a few months ago at a women physicians conference, and she was one of the speakers who spoke on stage, and her talk was so good that I immediately made a beeline to go connect with her. And I told her that I really wanted to have her on the podcast to bring her perspective and her narrative around being a professional and being a mom. Before a few years ago, I very much lived on this bubble of an island, which means I went to work, I came home, and it was like a rinse and repeat type of life. And it was nice. But one thing that has changed incredibly for me over the last few years is I have brought in solo travel as a part of my life success recipe. Now, as a busy professional woman, it might feel sometimes hard to do because you're likely the go-to person in your career and at home, that stepping away and having a trip that is just for you might feel indulgent, frivolous, or maybe something that you even feel guilty about. But here's what I have found when it comes to solo travel. I took my first solo trip, I think it was 2020, when I went to a business coaching mastermind, and it was the first time that I experienced a space that was just for me, where I didn't have to take care of the kids, the laundry, the meal prep. I didn't have to think about the inbox that was waiting for me. I just got a complete escape. Now, it's really nice to have those built into our real day-to-day lives, and of course that's so important, but solo travel, when you leave your island and you actually go somewhere that is beautiful and luxurious, it gives your nervous system a chance to really relax. And what I have at least found whenever I do solo trips and solo travel, even though I love my family, there is the type of relaxation that I do not get anywhere else. I find myself being able to really check back in with some of the goals and desires that I have for myself that is just for me, and I'm able to come back to my real life with a slightly more rested brain, which everyone benefits from. This is actually one of the reasons that last year, for the first time, I hosted my very first in-person retreat. It was in Cabo, Mexico. I didn't talk about it too much here on the podcast, and I likely won't be talking about it too much here on the podcast again because our seats are almost completely full, and that's what happened last time. I am recording this podcast episode earlier than it's going to air, so as of right now, at the time of this recording, we do have a few more rooms left in our retreat block. And if you know that as a busy professional woman, you have been craving some time that is just for you in a really beautiful setting, then I want you to consider joining us in Cabo, Mexico in March of 2027. You can go and get all of the retreat details over at burnstressloseweight.com/retreat. It's CME accredited, which means if you're a medical professional and you want to use CME funds and get CME credit, this retreat might be the perfect fit. One of the other things that I really love about this retreat is it's not your typical jam-packed medical conference where you have lectures from 8 to 5, you're furiously scribbling notes, and you need a vacation after the conference. The way that we have curated this retreat, our mornings are going to be coaching and workshopping, where we really hone back in on your desires and your goals for yourself. And we'll, of course, do some mindset work. And then the afternoons are completely for you. The backdrop and the setting for our retreat is out of this world. I have been there, so I can tell you firsthand, it is an all-inclusive luxury experience. You're taken care of head to toe. Basically, you just have to get there, and we have taken care of everything from the moment that you arrive. If you are someone that has been overworking in your career and you know that having a trip to look forward to would fill you with an incredible amount of joy, then go and check it out, burnstressloseweight.com/retreat. And of course, feel free to email us if you have any questions, or DM me over on Instagram at burnstressloseweight if you have a question about how the retreat works. Without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Shivana. She's going to introduce herself. She is truly amazing. I just loved her perspectives that she's bringing in on the podcast today. And again, I met her at an in-person event where I was traveling by myself, and I genuinely got to create new friendships and new connections. Let's get into my conversation with Shivana. I cannot wait for you guys to listen in. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I am joined by my friend, Dr. Shivana Naidoo, who I met a few months ago at a in-person live event. And I was basically starstruck by you a little bit. You spoke on stage and your topic really hit my heart. I even, just for context, because I think that we need to paint a picture. After your talk, there was kind of an outdoor hangout area, and I basically hunted you down. I was like, where is this woman? I have to go talk to her. Her talk was amazing, which is why I was like, I need to have you on the podcast to talk about your journey, your topic, and we're going to get into it. So without further ado, tell us about you and how you came to doing what you do.
Oh man, you just dive right in there, huh?
I go right in.
Hi everyone, my name is Shivana Naidoo. I'm a physician, just like our lovely Priyanka Venugopal as well. I guess it's an evolution, right? Like I think that, when I was sitting here thinking about what to talk about, I was thinking about, so I have kids, right? I have a 10-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, Gavin and Dylan Singh, loves and banes of my life. And my older son is in fifth grade. And I remember myself at fifth grade. And when we met and chatted and I looked through your website and I saw the word overachiever, I'm like, oh, that's me. That is
Mhm,
me. I was a fifth grader with my hand
mhm.
always up, like bum off the seat, pick me, pick me, pick
Yep,
me. That was me. I was
yep.
always an overachiever. And I think that what that resulted in me doing is pushing myself and not realizing it could be a problem. I thought it was
Mhm,
actually the answer, right? If I keep pushing myself, I'm going to achieve all the things I want to achieve. And what's funny is that recently, one of the other speakers at WPW, Kim Nichols, actually just yesterday messaged me and she was texting me and we were talking about, well, should we speak again? Should we not speak again? And she asked me, well, what do you think would make you feel satisfied? And I think I am striving still that sensation of being satisfied.
mhm,
And I think
mhm,
that's what led to me being overweight and not losing weight after I had my two boys and needing to go through a process of seeking my own like weight loss
mhm,
coaching. I'm a psychiatrist, right? So I'm a child psychiatrist and adult psychiatrist. So I've been trained as a therapist. I've also provided lots of therapy and support for lots of patients, thousands of kids and moms and adults. And still, when it comes to ourselves, we need a little bit of support and help, right? So
mhm,
I think through that, pushing myself and being hard on myself and being an overachiever, I think somewhere in there, there's a recognition that I have to pause and I have to figure out what's going to make myself feel satisfied, what's going to make
mhm.
myself feel like I have arrived. And I think part of the challenge is that throughout this whole process, right, from before age 10 till now, like 40 something,
Mhm,
I have struggled with giving myself credit and acknowledgement.
mm,
And when it came to the WPW conference, I had looked for the call for speakers. My personal coach, Dr. Stacy Heimberger, she had told me about that because she had spoken there as well a few years ago. So I had like all these ideas of things I wanted to speak about. And then, so to submit, you have to prepare a little talk, you got to record it, you got to send it in, give your main points. And I did all these like kind of mini talks. Like I think I submitted like 5 or 7. And then finally I'm like, you know what? I need to do this one. I need to just tell everyone like we need to give ourselves credit. How do we do that? How do we break it down? Because it's not that simple, right? And sometimes I think as women, we go through stages of life where we're seeking that credit, validation, support from the people around us, right? From our teachers, right? Medical students, residents, like we're looking for our attendings to say, amazing job, you got that differential diagnosis, you're so smart. We're looking for all that stuff. Then we're looking at it from our mom, right? We're looking at it from our peer circle. Then we look at it from our spouses. And then when that falls short, it's just like, well, where am I going to get this? Right? Because no,
mhm,
I'm waiting for someone to give it to me and I'm not getting it. So how do I get it? And I'm a work in progress, right? I'm not there yet, but that talk
mhm.
came out of me kind of working on my own self-talk
Yeah,
and trying to like practice what
yeah,
I preach. And I think recognizing this age-old timeless thing that we can only make ourselves happy, right? It
right.
can't come from outside. It has to come from inside. And I'm still working on that part, but
I
that's my
think it's a forever work in progress. And I think part of the reason that your talk resonated with me so much and why I was so excited about seeking you out and connecting with you and bringing you onto this podcast to talk about this topic is I think overachievers have picked up a skill in their young life. I feel like I was like 6 years old, first grade. I still remember that was my hand raised, like, I want Miss Block to just pick me and love me and like me.
Mhm.
And I think that young people, when they have the overachieving, either family unit that has driven achievement as like where you get worth and value, or maybe it's something that you just were always like, we pick up a skill, which is what you're talking about, this chase. And we get really skilled at the chase. We get really skilled at hustling, overworking, overthinking. And I don't know whether you've experienced this, but I would get the achievement. Like I would get the A plus. I remember when I passed oral board exams, it was great for maybe a day or two. But then you just jump onto the next hustle and the next chase. And I think the part of your talk that really resonated with me was the way that you described being on the chase and how we are depriving ourselves of feeling satisfied in the present, which is like a big part of what I love to talk about on this podcast. So, how did you come up with your framework? And can you talk us through your framework for how women can maybe recognize themselves in the chase and then also practice pausing and allowing themselves to feel some of the satisfaction now?
It is difficult to be aware of yourself in the chase when the chase is part of who you identify yourself as, right? Like if you are constantly running on this rat race, on this hamster wheel, it's hard to catch yourself. So oftentimes I feel like it takes a big event to make you stop and say, I just need to pause a minute and figure out what I'm doing here. And I think for a lot of physicians, that happens kind of mid-career, where you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm done with med school, I'm done with residency, I'm done with fellowship, I've done this for like 5, 7, 10 years. Now what am I doing? Like what is my purpose? What is the reason why I've suffered for so long, punished myself for so long? And I don't really recall where it was for me, if there was like a crystallized point, but what comes to my mind is there was a time where I was in my third job in post-fellowship. So this is about 10 years out. And I had moved across the country for the second time for this job where I felt I'm a psychiatrist. So in psychiatry, there are multidisciplinary team members, there's therapists, there's psychologists, there's psychiatrists, there's case managers, there's all kinds of support people. Basically, everyone's helping you with your thoughts and your feelings and how to make change in different ways. And it was COVID. And I remember I was the only person that had to come into the office, me and one other medical provider. All the therapists were at home, all the other NPs were at home, but I had to come in just for anyone who needed to come in. Fine, not a problem. They had moved offices, and I had moved from New York to Arizona to take this job. And they moved offices within Arizona. And in the first spot, I had no window. All right, fine. Okay. They move into the new office now. Guess who does not have a window? Me. And there were so many therapists who were assigned these offices with windows, but they weren't there. They were working from home. And I had this huge argument with a woman who was in charge of me, who was not a physician. And it was really upsetting to me because she looked at me and said, I have spent many years in an office without a window. And I'm like, girl, so have I. And now 10 years later, it's time for me to have a window. So what I did is in my windowless office, I got this this big sticky that was a pretend window and put it on the wall. So I created this window in the wall. And that's actually when I started my podcast, because I'm like, I cannot be stuck in this cubicle anymore. Like I need to feel like I can get fresh air in, I can have my voice go out into the world and not have it stuck. So I think that was the start of me recognizing that the system cannot give me credit. The system is not going to see me. I am just a worker bee, right? That's really what it is. I am replaceable, but I know I'm not replaceable. Shivana is not replaceable. Dr. So-and-so, Dr. Naidoo is. The work Dr. Naidoo does could be replaceable, but not Shivana. So I think that made me start my podcast, which helped me hear myself, which helped me start to think about myself as an agent of change first for me, but then also the possibility of what we can be for everyone else. And I think that's what's so wonderful about podcasts and the power of that we can control the voices we listen to, the ideas we let into our head, the ideas we let percolate in our mind, right? We don't have to wait to go to Grand Cayman and go to a conference, although that's amazing. Someone can listen to your podcast today and their mind can be opened. I remember there's a podcast you had, I think, about possibility. And I think it's the realms of possibility or the arenas. And when you said the word possibility, you used the term sparkle. It opens up your mind, you feel this little sparkle. And I was like, oh, I feel the sparkle. It was so amazing. I loved how you said it. And it's just a different phrase, how different people say things. People have said the word possibility before, but the way you said it, you could feel the opening, right? The little window, you could feel the window opening. So that was also in my talk, right? This idea of opening a window, cracking a window. because I think that sometimes we don't realize we're a part of the reason why the window is shut, but doesn't mean we can't make a window, right? We can create a window anywhere we want to, and we can open and close that window as much as we want to. That's in our control. But I think sometimes we don't realize we are in control of that. And I do think our younger generation, I think our kids will think differently about that. And I think we think differently about that compared to our own parents and their own generation. There's a greater sense of autonomy as we, go through the generations. I think now so many young people feel like right out of the gate, they can open up that window. But for me, it took a little bit of time. So,
yeah. So I definitely want to talk about the impact this has had on parenting. But before we talk about that, you just said something about we are sometimes contributing to the window being closed, and the window, like we think we don't have control over the window. So how has it shown up for you as a physician? You're in the space and somebody that's maybe not a physician or an admin person has told you, this is your office, you don't have a window. I feel like this is the moment that a lot of women feel like they have no control. They don't have any autonomy. They cannot feel satisfied in this life. So they keep chasing. How did they contribute to this, or how do they start to walk out of this?
So I think it is a different thing to say what you need to say versus being heard and being listened to. And I think as women, sometimes when we feel we're not being listened to, we should stop talking. I mean, I see this actually going on in my job currently, where I feel like there are fellow female physicians who are being shut down and they feel like, why bother even talking about it? But it's important, just like in the podcast, right? When we're doing our podcast, we don't know who's listening to us. It could be no one.
Right.
There is value with us hearing our own voice, formulating the thoughts and putting them out into the world to make them more real. And I think that, even in this scenario with the window and this particular job, I did escalate it. I talked to my medical director, who is a male, and he told me, Shivana, you need to apologize. I was like, what? He's like, you need to talk to this lady because she is in charge of the whole office. And somehow, I don't know how, because he's a guy, right? He doesn't realize that I stepped on her toes because she did not like that a doctor asked for a window. And I'm sure there are other dynamics there as well, right? But I asked one of my friends actually, who is not a physician, but she works for Teach for America and really creates different systems. And she had this great advice for me. She said, have the conversation, but you don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to say sorry, because you're not saying sorry. What you're saying is, it is very important to have a working relationship with you, a working professional relationship. I value having a strong working professional relationship with you. That's all you have to say. And I thought that was really good advice. So I went in and that's what I said. And I didn't say sorry. And that woman, at least in that visit, was so grateful that I came into her office and I seemed to apologize. I think she was ready for the apology, but did not get it, right? But I felt empowered to say, I do value our professional relationship. That is true, right? We want to be authentic, but also in control of the message. Now, I don't know if she listened to me or she heard me, but I said the words. So I know at least I did my due diligence. I did my part with expressing where my boundaries were, where the bridge was going to be, and where I was not going to cross. And crossing into apologizing for something we have not done is one of those places that I think as women, we so easily do. When I first dated my husband, he called me out. He's like, you say sorry a lot. And he was right. I used to say sorry all the time. I grew up in New York City. I went to public school. If someone stepped on my toes, I'm saying sorry because I don't want to get beat up, right? Like this has been, and I'm Desi. I think there is a kind of like a deferentialness that we give to many people. We're the model minority. I think there's a lot of like, yes, ma'am, that comes into our understanding. Plus, as physicians, we are trained to look above us at our superiors, find our flaws, and realize where maybe we need to make corrections. We're constantly seeking where we need to correct and self-correct and fix ourselves to be more appropriate. And I think as women too, we don't need that feedback. That is kind of ingrained within us to observe our space and to find where to fit in because we are so adaptable as women, right? That's how we make families work because we adapt. I don't know if I answered your question. I'm going off on a tangent, but I think that the concept of us being submissive and us saying sorry and apologizing for things that we may not even be our fault, I think is a very big step to recognize that we don't need to
Yeah.
apologize for the space we inhabit.
I think that, we were talking about how we contribute to keeping the window closed. And I think there's two elements that I've noticed. One is we don't mind our own business, which is what we want to think about something, how we want to feel about something, and then how we want to show up. And then because we are the overachiever, over hustler who wants to solve everyone's problems, we start minding other people's business and what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing. And then it just makes us resentful. And I loved the way that what you described was you got to honor your boundaries, but at the same time, create a working relationship with someone that was going to be important for you.
And I think sometimes we feel like rocking the boat would be opening the window. It would have been much easier for me to just do what my medical director said and just go in and say, I'm sorry. But I knew that didn't sit right with me. And I think there comes a time where as women, we grow into our own enough to like our emotional self catches up with the rational self and says, hold up, this does not feel right. We got to do something different. We've done it for so long and now we're not going to stand for it. I don't know if it's crossing over to 50. I don't know if it's crossing over 30 or having kids. I'm not sure what it is, but I think all of us women come to a point where we're at that stage. And then you get to like 70 and you're a badass, right? Like you don't have to justify anything to anybody. But I think that recognizing that we don't always have to follow every single recommendation that our superiors give us, that can give us the ability to take back our power and not keep that window closed. Because by continuing to follow everything that the men or the people in power or the non-physicians or the system tells us we need to do, the more it is that we continue to keep ourselves contained.
You're both an adult and a child psychiatrist. Is that right? Like you do both.
Yeah.
Have you found that the way that you will talk to an adult about conflict and the way you talk to a child about conflict is vastly different? Or are you noticing that you're using some of these same tools regardless of the age of your patient that you're talking to?
That's a great question. So, yesterday I actually spoke to parents at this nonprofit organization, and I used the term mind your own business. And I was talking to these parents about how it's important to not think that everything your child does is your business, right? Like they can handle their own problems. And you clearly are working 1,000 jobs as a parent. You got to mind your own business before you can figure out what they need. But I find myself speaking differently to parents, to adults who are not parents, and to teenagers versus children slightly differently, but the concept is the same. And I think it's actually not what is said, it's how it's said. With kids and with teens, you have to be a little bit more playful and you have to be more open to, I think, actually sharing about you. I think kids want to hear that you're a real person. Whereas I think adults, sometimes they want you to be authentic, but also that you're someone worth listening to, right? Like, who are you, right? And I think that's in today's era of Twitter, an N of one is all that you need. But we also want an N of one that has an experience of 1,000,000 to be able to speak. And I think that's where I will alter how I'm saying things. But I think the what is the same. It's just really the how a bit different.
What would you say has been your, like, a professional experience in terms of psychiatry versus coaching? Like in terms of the overlap, the separation, because I think this is actually such a common question that people have, which is like, what is coaching in your professional opinion? And then like, how does that differ from therapy and psychiatry?
So those are great questions that I've asked so many people. So just to be, fully open, as a psychiatrist, you're trained in therapy. So as a part of your residency, you go through different stages and rotations. And throughout your second, third, and fourth year of adult residency, and then again in fellowship, which is 2 years for child psychiatry, you are carrying cases just for therapy alone and not doing medication. And then you're carrying some cases for medication alone and then cases for therapy and medication alone. And you're learning different therapy modalities. So for me, one of them is psychodynamic psychotherapy. One is CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, upon which a lot of coaching is based. And then the other one is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, or kind of more focused on personality disordered kind of treatment. So I have had various types of therapy from psychologists, from psychiatrists, from social workers throughout my career. And now I see a weight loss coach. So she is a coach. And I also have done some online training in coaching, which is very much CBT based and DBT based. But I see the focus as very different. And I also see the people seeking that help out as also very different. So I do think that with coaching and with therapy, there is some overlap. But I think that with therapy, there is a much clearer distance and boundary between the provider or the therapist and the patient or client, meaning that really you want a lot of the treatment ideas to come from the patient and client themselves, that they're the ones with the answer, but also they are the ones with the challenge. So they have to bring it up in their own time, in their own way, when they are ready. So there's a sense of like waiting and cultivating this fertile ground for them to be ready. And depending on the level of severity of challenges they have, how bad their anxiety is, how bad their depression is, how bad the way, how ingrained that habit is, it might make it harder to get to that time. But also a lot of therapy, which is not particularly CBT, but I think a lot of psychodynamic psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, and even dialectical behavioral therapy base the root of the solution on understanding the past. If we understand past habits or past traumas or challenges, that can help us unlock our future. I think coaching is focused on the future and on the present. Now, DBT is also based on present as well as CBT, but I think there still is a bent on looking into the past. But being someone who's now undergone coaching, I find that with coaches and with myself as a client, the boundary is a little bit thinner, that there's a sense that the coach can co-offer solutions. And there's a co-joint problem solving that happens. It's a little bit different than I think for therapy. But also for coaching, there's almost always, what are we working at right now? Where are we going? What are we doing right now? Where are we going? Like you're always oriented on the future. And in traditional therapy, there's something called a treatment plan, where you have a goal that you're working on. You have to kind of meet that goal within a 90-day period. That's not so formalized in coaching, but there always is a treatment goal, right, in mind. You're always trying to work forward to something. So I do think also people that are undergoing coaching have to be healthier. They have to be willing to be able to tolerate a coach being like, well, let's get real with this. Do you really feel this way? And that takes a certain amount of grit within you to be like, oh, they're calling me out. I'm not going to be insulted by this. That's not going to set me back therapeutically. I can meet the challenge because I have an ego that is a little bit more fully formed. Whereas you would not do that with a therapy patient. You would gently confront them only if they're ready and you're sure the therapeutic alliance can hold that. Whereas with a coach, within the first 2 sessions, you're probably doing some confrontation and you're kind of challenging them.
But there is also something that's super important to have a relationship of safety and trust. And I think that that's the only way that you can have the confrontation is when you have been feeling a sense of safety and trust. I think, and even coming back to what you were saying earlier in the episode, when you hear someone talk, you get a resonance with them.
Yes.
You get a feeling like this, whether it's on a podcast or an email or something that maybe they've put out, you get a sense that this person is going to understand me or they're understanding my experience. And just that relationship is what allows confrontation to happen.
And in therapy, a lot of the ideas are actually not that you resonate with that person, but that person is a blank slate, that the therapist is a blank slate upon which that patient can reflect their ideas back and forth versus a resonance. That's at least how you start this therapeutic alliance. Eventually there is a resonance, but I think with coaching, there's a resonance automatically, right? You're encouraged to find someone that resonates with you and is on a similar wavelength so that you can be more effective. So I think in some ways you kind of fast forward what might happen in a therapeutic alliance. But again, I think people that seek coaching are a little bit healthier and have a different kind of resilience and a different kind of tolerance of distress than I think people who would be seeking therapy. But it's a good question, I think, for a lot of psychologists, for example, and even psychiatrists. I think the idea of coaching is upsetting, right? It's like impeding on their space. And I remember myself even having those feelings initially when, as a psychiatrist, because I'm hearing a lot of coaches say things that are very similar to processes that we deal with in therapy. But at the end of the day, there's plenty of fish in the sea. We all need help. And if coaching somehow destigmatizes the need to seek help and face our thoughts and
Mhm.
improve them and work on them, I'm all for it because we all
Yeah,
need to find the help that works for us.
I totally agree. Because one of the things that we connected on before was also the impact that this work has on parenting and on our children. I know that you mentioned you have two kids. How have you found this work has changed the way that maybe you parent versus maybe the way that you received parenting? Because, like when I had kids, I just assumed that they were going to be like me. And then I thought they were just going to like listen to everything that I said. Because that's the kind of kid I kind of was. I just listened to what my parents said. I was not a troublemaker. That is not my kids. And so I'm curious what you think about the role that this work has had on parenting and definitely your relationship with your two kids.
So it's interesting because I think that I really thought long and hard about becoming a doctor, right? It's been in my
Mm.
conscious mind since I was maybe as long as I can remember, right? 4 or 5, whenever. I've always wanted to be a doctor, was striving to be a doctor. And I got a lot of external feedback about the importance of that from my family. But the mom thing was kind of like a given, right? Like I'm fortunate that I
Mm.
did not have to go through things like infertility treatments, or I had a couple miscarriages, but not several. I'm fortunate it was easy to become a parent, but it's not
Mhm.
easy parenting at all. And I was
Mhm.
completely underprepared for the amount of transformation and reflection I would have to go through to work at being a parent. And yesterday, when I spoke to these parents, I told them I'm a work in progress as a parent. There's a saying in child psychiatry that if you are a parent, you're a much better child psychiatrist. But if you're a child psychiatrist, it doesn't necessarily make you a better parent.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I think that that's why so many of us in the mental health care space seek our own therapy and seek our own treatment because we know how impacted we are by the work that we do, and that can stress us out and lead us to burnout and compassion fatigue, and that we have to
Yeah.
work on ourselves to be resilient against that. So I think with myself being a parent, I recognize that my kids are very, very good at observing me and making up their own story for why I do what I do, which may not be true, right? I'm a psychiatrist, right? So I work with people that stereotypically talk to themselves, but I do a lot of talking to myself in front of my kids. For example,
Mhm.
I do not like driving. I hate driving. I'm from New York. I'd rather take the subway and walk everywhere. I am not a fan of driving. My husband loves to drive,
Mhm.
right? We're good combo in that way. So
Mhm.
when I drive, I get really stressed out because there are a lot of crazy people on the roads, right? And they don't
Mhm.
follow rules. And then my kids are in the car with me, so they're like making noise, and then that like really makes me
Adds to
anxious.
the aggravation. Yeah.
So when I am calming myself down in the car, I am verbally calming myself down in the car. Okay, Shivana, you can make the left turn. You're okay. You see a truck, but you're okay. You got this. So
Mhm.
I will do much more of that. And I do that so that my kids don't just think, oh my God, mom is freaking out. She's going to have a mental breakdown. No, they can say,
Mm.
mom is freaking out and she is managing it.
Regulating. Yeah.
She is
Yeah.
working on it because kids can't see the internal dialogue. And
Mhm.
I think that that gives them the opportunity and the language because I am now modeling that it's okay to talk to yourself and calm yourself down because the skill we're trying to teach all of our kids and ourselves is emotional
Mhm.
regulation. It's a constant work in progress to emotionally regulate ourselves based on the situation. And I think that I do now a much more conscientious job of giving myself credit. I will give myself high fives much more often. I will have my kids high five me. I will really
Mhm.
actively say I am validating myself. And, I
Mhm.
have boys, right? So I would like to raise men who are far more emotionally aware than the men
Mhm.
that I had to pick from in terms of my own
Mhm.
cohort. And men have come a far way in terms of being more emotionally aware, I think, but we still have a far way to go. And I think that if we want our women to meet their match, we have to raise men who can rise to that occasion. So that's some ways that I'm trying with implementing like therapy skills and emotion and coaching and emotional regulation. I also have this thing, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm trying it, called Mom School. So I don't know if your kids are fans of Bluey.
Oh yeah, Bluey. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so in Bluey, this is a cartoon from Australia that was actually designed by psychologists to really teach parents and kids how to play. And I think that's so important. But one of the themes from one of the episodes was mom teaching Bluey, the main character, how to raise a balloon and how to be a good mom. So
Mhm.
what I have in my mom school, which is on Saturdays, is we learn meditation skills and we learn self-regulation skills and we learn how to deal with anger. So I try to make like a playful activity that is going to help them like flip the script for themselves. So for example, they like mac and cheese, and there is those slices of Kraft cheese.
Oh, yeah.
So I had them hold on to frying pans, not hot, cool frying pans, and they had a piece of cheese in there. And they said a negative thought, right? Because my kids very easily say, I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, I can't do this, I'm never going to get this. It's just like that negative mindset is just there. No one put it there. And I had them flip the cheese. All right, flip your thought. I'm not dumb, or I'm only dumb sometimes, or I'm only dumb when I'm fighting with my brother, right? Like just flip it around. Just start the thought ladder. Start creeping up to how you're going to change your thought, because it's a tall and high ask to go from I'm not dumb to I'm amazing, because that doesn't feel authentic. We got to creep up to I'm only dumb sometimes. I'm dumb only in the mornings. I'm dumb when I only have 1 cup of coffee versus 2, right? We have to inch our way forward to get to that I'm amazing. So that's kind of something I'm trying out. Let's see how it goes. We're all experimenting, right? As parents.
I think one of the things I was sharing, this was when we talked on your podcast, is my son for sure. I mean, both my kids have in some way been my greatest teacher, more than med school and more than residency, like more than the most rigorous class I took. I think biochemistry was like the bane of my existence in undergrad. I would say more than any academic class, I've learned more and been the most challenged from my kids, because it has opened and forced me to reckon with my most limiting thoughts and my most tender feelings. So whenever, like if my son would struggle with something and I felt worry, I had to contend with that emotion. Or like with my daughter, she really holds back sometimes. She's very shy. And so to contend with my emotional experience of them, I think in a way, because I didn't want the experience for them where I'm trying to control them. I tried that approach. It didn't work very well. So the only alternative was not to force them to change, but for me to change. And I think by proxy, I think of this like systems theory. When one person changes, everyone in the system starts to change. And I think that that's what I have noticed in terms of my parenting relationship, definitely in my marriage. When we change, when we challenge our thoughts, when we realize we can open the window, when we realize that actually we have a voice that's worth being heard, I think when we do that work, then like the ripple effect is the whole system has to change to meet you. And it happens in the best way. But I'm kind of curious whether you've experienced that as well.
I think that you have been so brave to share how being challenged as a parent has sculpted you for the better. I think that, again, in my experience as a child psychiatrist, there are so many parents who are not that brave. So many parents who are not able to look at the broken parts of themselves and how they have to heal that first. So I wish there were so many more parents who could do that kind of work, but we're all in different places, right? We can't all get there in the same way. I think for myself personally, I have a very stubborn husband. I have very stubborn kids, and I'm also very stubborn. So
It's a stubborn, yeah.
I think that I have not quite seen an entire system change, but I think I have seen myself change. And I think that's a start, because I feel better, right? And I think that when I feel better, my kids can feel that. And I think that when I feel differently and make shifts, they see that and they start to wonder, well, why did mom make that shift? Why is mom walking around the house with ankle weights on? That's kind of weird. But then what happens? They put those ankle weights on and they're walking. Why is mom walking on the walking pad? That's weird. Okay, now I'm going to try walking on the walking pad. So I think in that way, we as models for our kids, they don't do what we say. They say what we do, and then they do what we do. So I think in that way, we are always agents of change as parents if we are brave enough to change those things. Because I also think it is very easy for us to get stuck in habits. And I think a lot of busy professional women and men get stuck in habits just to survive. And they may not recognize they're on that hamster wheel. They may not recognize they're stuck in this habit until there's a breaking point. And maybe even then, they don't make those changes. So I just want to applaud anyone listening to this podcast and considering the ideas that you're sharing and making those changes happen, because it is not an easy thing to do. It takes effort and energy and persistence and hard work, right? And
Yeah,
I love the
yeah.
coaching frame of what if it could be easy, right? Because that almost seems blasphemous to me, right? I'm such a masochist. It's supposed to be hard. I'm supposed to punish. But I love that idea because what if it could be? And what if it could be not that bad? And sometimes when we try to make change happen, it's surprising how
Yeah.
effortless it can be when it's aligned with where we are and how ready we are.
I often think about, because I think this is a really common thought pattern that comes up, especially for overachievers, is it's going to take so much effort or it's going to take so much energy for me to make a change. The truth is 100% yes, it's called growing pains for a reason, and your goals are worth having. But the part that I always like to highlight, especially for professional women, is there's also a cost to keeping your status quo. And the only time there's going to come it's like that moment that you were talking about at the beginning where your status quo feels intolerable, or you're so done with the status quo that you're willing to put in the energy, the effort.
Yes.
And I think that it's always worth looking at it like that. In my opinion, is my status quo worth keeping, or is it expensive? Am I going to regret staying in this state 50 years from now, 10 years from now? Then it's worth me making this change, just knowing they're both uncomfortable. The status quo is uncomfortable and change is uncomfortable. But which one is the one that you want for yourself? I think that that's always the way that I think about making change.
Yeah, and I think there has to come a point of suffering or anger or irritation. There's some emotion that has to happen, some wake up, right? That what you're doing right now is not in the best benefit of future self, right? It is harming you, is hurting you. And then it's tolerating whichever discomfort that is. And I remember for myself, that thought, that limiting belief was change is work. Everything feels like work. And work was not fun, right? And I'm a very, very serious person. So fun is hard for me, right? Fun is like a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But that line that everything is work, everything feels like work, it took my therapist to be like, Shivana, don't you hear yourself? Like you're making yourself not happy because all you're doing is telling yourself everything is work. And it did feel like that. It felt that way. But even then, that was not enough for me to make a change. Something else had to happen. I had to be angry enough at this other person to say, okay, stop. Let's make the window. Let's fix something. We can't do it this way anymore.
And I think that, for anyone listening, everyone has a different point when that happens. There's no right time, wrong time. And I just want to say it's literally never too late. It is the moment you decide. That's it. Which I think is a gift that we should all be giving ourselves. It's never too late.
And that it's in your control, right? You get to decide when that time is. Only you know the right time. And whenever it's right for you, that is the right time.
Absolutely. Shivana, you have a podcast. Tell us how people can hear more from you, hear more of your thoughts and perspectives on all the things.
Absolutely. So my podcast is called Thinking It Through with Dr. Naidoo, Child Psychiatrist, and it's mainly for parents of youth with mental health care challenges, because every parent, as you talked about, Priyanka, gets tested by their kid, right? So it's really thinking about how we can work better with our children. And for those of us who are parenting kids in the mental health care system, who have mental health care challenges, I really just want to educate and empower parents to know the options out there. There are options beyond just a psychiatrist and a therapist that can help you in school, help you in nutrition and diet, help you in terms of thinking of outside of the box, OT therapy and animal therapy and play therapy. So I want to expose parents to these ideas and options because only you can find the right fit for you and for your child.
And sometimes it's also like knowing that these possibilities even exist. I think that you're helping to bring information to people that just didn't even know that those were options.
Absolutely. And I also have had different little episodes, for example, on the talk that I had at WPW, because everyone should know how to give themselves credit, right? It's not just for female physicians. So I also do have different series in there that focus on female professionals and kind of overthinkers and overwhelmed overthinkers and how to really think it through.
I love it. Shivana, thank you for coming on the podcast. We will put all of her information in the show notes in case you missed the name of anything, how to catch all of her stuff, all of her brilliant information. And thank you so much for coming on the conversation. It has been amazing. And we will all see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Shivana Naidoo. We will link all of her contact information and all of her information in the show notes page. So if you want to go find out more about her, we will list everything in the show notes. One of my favorite things about solo travel when you go to a destination is you never really know who you might connect with. One of the things that I really love about curated events is when you have a curated event, it's not just random solo travel. You know that the women that are coming to that event are also looking for something similar to you. When I met Shivana, we went to a physician conference, which was very carefully crafted and attracted physician women who are hardworking in their careers and also want to feel a little better. They want to come home with more tools and more skills to really elevate their life experience. And that is what happens when you put real solo travel on the calendar. Our next retreat is happening in Cabo, Mexico. I don't know if I'm going to be mentioning it too much on the podcast in case our room block closes, but you can go and check it out over at burnstressloseweight.com/retreat. It is an all-inclusive luxury experience where everything is taken care of. Your meals, the workshop, your room, everything is included in one price for your retreat ticket. And this is the first time that we're actually having single and double rooms. So if you have a friend that you want to bring, we actually created accommodations to make that happen as well. There is something really magical that happens when you have live in-person coaching that I cannot even put it into words. What happens when you meet people and have real connection from outside behind a screen, right? I think that we all are craving real life connection. And if you want to have poolside conversation and real connection with other humans, then really consider joining us at this retreat. It's happening in March of 2027. You can go get all the details over at burnstressloseweight.com/retreat. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us. I hope you all have an amazing day and that you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Shivana Naidoo. I will see you all at next week's episode. Bye. One lesson that I have learned over the years is when women feel better on the inside out, everyone around them gets to benefit. Your career, your family, you all get to claim the up level. So if today's podcast episode gave you a new way to think or maybe challenge an old perspective that you've had, take it with you the rest of this week. And if this podcast episode resonated with you, I would love it so much if you could leave us a rating and review and share this episode with a friend or in your local community. And if you know you want more support and structure in achieving your body goals this year, it might be time for us to work together. Head over to www.burnstressloseweight.com where I have the latest resources and all of the information about how you can work with me. I hope you guys have an amazing week and I will see you at